Good morning, everyone. This is Carolina Weather Authority meteorologist Joshua Nagelberg with the latest on large Hurricane Delta, which is nearing the northwestern Gulf Coast. And we will probably have some live reports coming later on towards the evening hours as Delta makes landfall, probably around 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on those as well. Also, please visit us at carolinawxauthority.com for our latest articles and some impacts expected here across the Carolinas, as well as our local weather impacts. And visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/carolinawxauthority. Right now, this is what we are expecting. Delta right now is starting to weaken as we've expected, and we're expecting landfall around 6 o'clock Central Daylight Time as a Category 2 hurricane, which is still going to be a very bad storm because of the size of it and because of the area that it's hitting. That's an area that very well got crushed by Hurricane Laura, which was a 150-mile-per-hour storm back at the end of August 6 weeks ago. And we're expecting sustained winds to be in the neighborhood of 100 to 110 miles per hour with the landfall. Most of that going to be over the water, but some of that will work its way inland. And as the storm roars on shore, there's a potential for wind gusts in here to reach 90 to 120 miles per hour. Also, with the western part of the Eyewall, we're looking at potentially a foot of rain coming, and it's already coming now, but right on through tonight, and then some improvement behind the storm in the morning. But unfortunately, that threat for a foot of rain impacts the Lake Charles metropolitan area. Also, on the eastern side of the storm, some crushing storm surge over 10 feet, possibly getting into Vermilion Bay. That's, of course, going to be very bad for Marsh Island and for a lot of the natural wildlife refuges here. And also, something we should not dismiss will be the threat for some tornadoes to form later this afternoon and into tonight over parts of south central and especially southeastern Louisiana, which includes the Baton Rouge area, maybe Morgan City, Houma, and greater New Orleans, particularly the western and northern sections here of the metropolitan area, as well as southwestern Mississippi, including Macomb and especially Natchez, and nearby areas of central Louisiana as well could have tornadoes tonight after dark. So that could be particularly dangerous. So if you are in Louisiana, make sure you've got your cell phone charged right now and handy for any of those warnings to come across, as you may lose power, and you definitely want to be alerted to those. A look at the map right now. Delta is what we'll spend our energy on. Yeah, there's another wave out here, not likely to be a threat to any land anytime soon, something we'll watch next week. But Delta's got winds of 115 miles per hour, and it's moving northward now at about 13 miles per hour. So we're expecting landfall in about 6 hours, give or take. The latest forecast map has not changed much. We're looking at a right bend beginning here this afternoon. And so that's going to take the storm east of the Louisiana-Texas border, east of Sabine Pass, probably just east as well of where Laura hit. But notice the western edge of this cone still impacts Cameron, as well as Hackberry and Lake Charles. The eastern part goes into Vermilion Parish and to the western part of the Lafayette area, with Acadiana likely to get a lot of the worst of the wind as the storm moves inland. So a hurricane warning in effect from Morgan City westward to High Island in Texas. And in this area, the potential for hurricane conditions as the storm is nearing the coastline this afternoon and especially this evening, with improvement later tonight. The storm will weaken substantially as it moves inland over land and as it gets wind sheared apart tonight, and should be a tropical storm after midnight in the Alexandria area. Tomorrow morning, a tropical storm near Monroe, and a depression by tomorrow afternoon to the north of Vicksburg and into north central Mississippi. The remains will kind of fall apart, but some of that circulation will be impacted by the jet stream and could bring some heavy rain up into the mountains of the central Appalachians and also on the western side of those mountains across the hills of Kentucky and West Virginia. So that's what we're looking at track-wise here. Storm surge is something we need to talk about as well. Fortunately for Lake Charles, it is going to be on the western side of the storm, so the water is not going to get piled into Lake Charles. There'll be some flooding potential around Calcasieu Lake, but this area that had a lot of the storm surge from Laura is going to be mostly spared, although the farther east you get, obviously a double whammy here in parts of eastern Cameron Parish and into western parts of Vermilion Parish. You had that storm surge over 15 feet at the coast. You're going to be getting it over 6 to maybe 10 feet out of this as well, just to the right of where the center comes in. But what concerns me more is Vermilion Bay right here sits very vulnerable. So does West Cote Blanche Bay. And we could see a surge approaching 9-10 feet in this area as we get all the way up to, and I know you guys who like your hot sauce know this area well, Avery Island could be inundated with storm surge. That is the Tabasco plant, as well as a lot of natural wildlife in this area. Towns such as Erath could be underwater if this is correct. I've seen reports of people staying behind in Erath, and I think that's really not a smart move at this point, looking at what we're seeing on the map here with a threat for 6 to maybe 9 feet of storm surge above ground. Same goes for Delcamp, and Lake Peigneur going to be underwater as well. Lafayette, I think, is going to be okay out of this. We will definitely have the wind damage and the threat of tornadoes and flooding, but the storm surge should not make it this far up. New Iberia is going to be a little bit hairier, I think. Parts of the area, when you get down to Highway 90, could be in rough shape. But even to near Jeanneret and even all the way over to Franklin, we will have the threat for storm surge. But a lot of the area that's going to be underwater is going to be more rural spots, less inhabited rural parts and marshland over here. So that's what we're looking at as far as storm surge goes. Oh, by the way, there'll be some storm surge overtopping places like Grand Isle, even close to Houma and Thibodaux. We could see some of those low-lying areas seeing some coastal flooding. And the same goes for the Mississippi River Delta, as well as some areas up on the east side of New Orleans. And, oh, by the way, near Ponchatoula could have some storm surge damage. Same goes for Madisonville as well, near the lake, pretty much, not inland where most of the folks live. So here's a look at the radar from OU. I'm going to give you guys this link on the YouTube description so you can see it. The circulation's not in yet, but Lake Charles radar, of course, got crushed and destroyed in Laura, so they are not operating with a radar. So the University of Oklahoma, Norman, has deployed a radar, and you'll get to see the storm coming on shore. Right now, we're just getting bands of rain and increasing wind and storm surge on the north side of the storm, but you can take a look at radar scope and see from the Houston Galveston radar that the eye is still fairly well intact. It is going to fill in a little bit here with lightning strikes being seen offshore here. That still shows a pretty healthy eye wall. But as we zoom in here, this is the Sabine Pass, so it is actually starting to nudge a little bit to the right, and it looks like this is Lake Charles right here. This is Sabine Pass right here. This is Cameron. And we're looking at landfall most likely just east of Cameron in here. So the storm track is going to come up like this and start to bend right. And that's going to put Lake Charles on the western side of the eye wall of the storm. This is the eye wall right here. And some of the highest winds are going to come by on the western side. The worst of the storm surge will be on the eastern side in here. And we'll get to places like, or the east side of the eye wall, that is. We'll get to places like Erath, Jennings, Crowley, maybe even Lafayette and Opelousas. Hurricane conditions could occur anywhere in these areas here as well. So not just the west side, but certainly the east side. And I do think we're going to be looking at the threat for more tornadoes as we get later into the day and into the evening hours, especially in this area right here, in that right front quadrant of the storm. So that's what we're watching right now. We'll see if we can figure out what some of the winds are in here on the Doppler radar velocity. Let me, I have to move myself here because I'm in the way. But let me pause it here and examine, and you may not be able to see these too well, but from the Houston radar, seeing wind speeds in the purples here of 115 to 124 miles per hour. And that's going to be in the northern and northeastern eye wall. So right now, that's where the strongest winds are. 124 is the most I see. Now keep in mind, this is at radar height, so near the ground, near the ocean, those winds are not as strong. But some of these wind gusts could make their way down in these convective bands where the lightning is. So some of this wind energy could make its way down to the ground. So gusts to 120 certainly look possible here on the northeastern side of the eye wall as it comes on shore. Fortunately, when that happens, it will probably be in a less populated area. But even on the western side of the storm, we do have winds approaching 70 to 75 miles per hour. And if this storm tightens up, which most storms do when they come on shore, those kind of winds could certainly find their way into the Lake Charles area. So that's something that I'm concerned with. Aircraft recon, you can see the trend from this morning. There was a wobble to the left, but now a wobble back to the right. This is Port Arthur right here. So the storm track should come in like this. And the question mark is it going to be Cameron or is it going to be over toward Vermilion Parish? My gut feeling says it's in between the two. Winds still being measured in aircraft recon at flight level at 90 knots, but this is definitely weaker than yesterday when it was a Category 3 at 120 miles per hour. So some better news, but certainly still a powerful storm, to say the least. And this plane that's in here as well, measuring flight level winds to 95 knots. So this very well could be down to Category 2 right now, and I suspect at the noon advisory, the 1 o'clock advisory, it will be reduced to a Category 2 storm. But still a very big, powerful storm, and couple that with the fact that it's hitting a very vulnerable, storm-weary area where a lot of the roofs right now are damaged. A lot of the property is still damaged. There's debris everywhere. Throw on hurricane force wind, this place is just going to be unrecognizable, I think, unfortunately. Here's a visible satellite. You can see the towering thunderstorm clouds where very heavy rain and winds are coming, and this translates northward right into Cameron Parish and Calcasieu Parish as well. The forecast model guidance hasn't shifted. All the tracks are in fairly well agreement through landfall. We like to see that, of course, and then remaining low is going to come up through Kentucky and around Cincinnati. Forecast winds will drop down to Category 2 here in the next 12 hours. Some even show Category 1. That would be at 8 or 9 o'clock tonight, which makes sense because the storm should be about 2 or 3 hours into its landfall, weakening over land, and then should be a tropical storm by tomorrow morning. A look at the HWRF model shows that. You can see the storm wobbles a bit to the left here. This is at 10 a.m. Central, 11 Eastern, and then starts to make its turn to the north-northeast this afternoon, and continues that trend into tonight with a storm track very close to Alexandria and up through Monroe. So some of the bigger cities of western and northern Louisiana are actually going to be in the eyewall this storm. That includes Lafayette, Lake Charles on both sides here, Alexandria, and Monroe, Louisiana. So a lot of folks are going to be impacted by this. And on the right side, we will have the threat for tornadoes as well, impacting places like Baton Rouge, which I still think could have a wind gust close to hurricane force. But worse, the west of Baton Rouge, you get maybe over Whiskey Bay, where we could be dealing with that kind of powerful amount of wind and rain. You can see on the European model, maximum wind gusts are expected this afternoon around 115 knots, and then as it makes landfall around 105 knots, and 70 knots for Lake Charles. That's about 80 miles per hour. We're going to see hurricane force wind gusts in an area that just got crushed 6 weeks ago. Very bad news there. And that it'll be on the western eyewall, so anywhere in Lake Charles from about 4 o'clock central till about 8 or 9 o'clock central, those wind gusts will reach hurricane intensity, which means 4 hours of potential hurricane force winds in Lake Charles. For Alexandria, the winds aren't quite as strong, but we could have gusts getting close to 65 miles per hour this evening. Baton Rouge closer to 55 miles per hour. New Orleans closer to 45 or 50. So New Orleans, you're going to have potential power outages, but the bigger problems are, of course, in southwest and central Louisiana. Rainfall totals are likely to be pretty high. We're seeing 10-inch potential around Lake Charles, maybe even a foot just offshore, getting into Cameron Parish. Maybe 6-7 inches around Alexandria, 5 or 6 around Monroe. Tallulah could see 3 or 4 inches of rain. Notice the rainfall amounts are not as high in southeast Louisiana, so we don't expect flooding there. But we could have some heavy rain in the western mountains of North Carolina as this moisture all gets pushed northeastward. But the bigger flooding issues, I think, will be western Louisiana, maybe northwest Mississippi, southeast Arkansas, into southern and middle Tennessee, and then getting into the mountains here over the next couple of days. We'll take a look real quick at the satellite. This is a pretty neat view of how big our storm is. It's growing. It's going to impact the Houston area on the western side. And let's take a look at tornado potential while we're here. This is the HRR model from College of DuPage, and it shows that the threat for significant tornadoes starts to come up around 1 or 2 in the afternoon near Morgan City, and then starts to spread up toward Baton Rouge around 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon. This is significant tornado potential. It's an index which keeps in mind the amount of rising motion in the air, the amount of wind shear, the amount of heat, and as well as convective potential and the amount of moisture. And you can see those numbers come up this evening around 7 o'clock in south central Louisiana, getting up into the Lafayette area around 7 or 8, getting into West Baton Rouge and East Baton Rouge Parish around 8 or 9 o'clock. And we could see the risk for tornadoes near and north of Baton Rouge this evening. And then overnight, still a chance for some tornadoes around the New Orleans area, but it does wane. I think this evening is a greater shot. And then tomorrow, we still have to watch out with heating of the day. Some storms could produce rotation in parts of Alabama and eastern Mississippi, and we could have a few tornado warnings there as well. So that's all I've got for y'all. We may have a live coming this evening as the storm nears landfall, but please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss that. Have a great afternoon, be safe, and God bless.